And in my view, that's actually not the reason why we wear the garment. The garment is helping you remember your commitment to Christ. Garments were not designed to be the standard of modesty.
To me, covenants are all about relationship. But even covenants, all good things can be taken too far, almost to an idolization of that thing, as opposed to the relationship it's creating.
The purpose behind it.
And garments are no different. I think that sometimes we want to inspire commitment, and the garment is a beautiful way to inspire commitment, but sometimes that commitment is taken a step beyond where it should be, and it creates animosity towards those around us, as opposed to being a thing that unifies and leads us to Christ. Reminds us of Christ.
Welcome, everybody, to the No Bushel podcast. We are excited to be with you today, Big Ben and the Burning Bushman. I am looking forward to our conversation today.
It's going to be great. Please like and subscribe so more people can see these videos if you do like them.
And even if you don't, just share it.
Just share it, just because. So this is the No Bushel podcast. We don't want to hide our lights. We want to speak truth. We want to inspire and encourage all people to not be afraid, to be who you are, and have good conversations, Christ-like conversations, which we want to avoid conflict, the spirit of contention, because it's of the devil. However, we do want to contend for the faith as well. And so we strive to take those topics that are maybe a little bit on the edge, a little bit difficult for people, that people are wrestling with. We fully believe in wrestling in our faith and understanding to come to a better understanding of the truth. And so if you like that, please join us along the route, along the way.
Definitely. A lot of these conversations that we have and will continue to have really stem from, it's not just a conversation that we put a camera on and we talk. Like, these are conversations that Ben and I, we talk about with each other and with other people on a day-to-day basis. I feel like these stem from real conversations and discussions and questions that we've had that I think help us feel a little bit more personal connection, and it's just a little bit more real, rather than just saying, well, let's go put a camera on this and see if we can get some clicks. These are actual issues and discussions, and hopefully that helps it relate a little bit more to you as the viewer. And if you have any questions or thoughts, and feel free to comment and ask some questions as well. We encourage that. Everything
comes from a faithful perspective of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which we are both active members. That does not mean we are perfect. Our views may not always be perfectly in line
with each other or the church.
Or with each other. We hope to be.
We
hope to be in line with the church. But that being said, I think that you can still have differing opinions and both be in line with the church. So that can be the complicated wrestling that we do. Today we're going to be hitting on the topic of the new garments, which has already had a lot of discussion online, but I feel like there's still a lot of people wrestling with this. I've had many conversations with people, and across the board, it's funny how a change like this happens in our culture, and maybe just before we get to garments, just the idea that the culture within the church is changing, I would assume, at a faster rate right now than it ever has in church history, just due to modern technology, like the church is larger than it has ever been. And when you have large groups that all get together and do things, they create strong cultures, and then that strong culture over the years changes. But there's been a lot of de-prescription in coming from the top in gospel principles, less specifics being put out, the For Strength of Youth changes, garment changes that for a lot of people feels wrong even, or stress-inducing, or maybe they feel fine with it. So like with the new garments, like I know lots of people I've talked with who, from a like what's morally okay standpoint, they feel totally okay with it, with, you know, maybe wearing a sleeveless shirt or other things.
Flaunt those shoulders.
But at the same time, they feel extremely uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
Just because culturally we're not used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got both angles. Those who are like, are the brethren really on the side of this? Like, I've had a couple of those conversations too, where it's like, I don't know how to reconcile this with my understanding of modesty and what modesty is supposed to mean with the garment. And then you got the other side where it's like people just fully embrace and go, and some people think it's too much embracing. Anyway, I don't know where you are. I know where I'm at, but
yeah, let's get into that a little bit, because I think you and I are probably aligned in this this particular topic. But to begin with, maybe we should start with, for the viewers that are listening that aren't as familiar with what garments are, maybe just give a brief explanation of what that is. The garment is essentially a sacred piece of clothing that us as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wear underneath our clothing. It is essentially our underwear. You may have heard of magic underwear or special underwear. There's nothing magic about it, but it is sacred. It is an important piece of clothing to us, as it ultimately is a reminder to us to our covenants, our relationship with Jesus Christ. That's essentially what the garment is there for, is to help us remember on a daily basis. By wearing it, it's something that we remind ourselves daily that we want to be close to Christ and to be examples of Christ. And as we have, those who have gone to the temple and gone through the endowment and received their endowments in the temple, we choose to accept that wearing the garment is something that allows us to show God our commitment to Him, and that we promise to remember Him. So that's kind of a very brief explanation of what the garment is.
And for those that might seem a little bit strange, like, religious garments across all religions are very common.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the Christian faith, I mean, people wear cross necklaces all the time, or and is that, people could say, that's weird, you're wearing the cross, but you're used to it because it's cultural.
Yeah.
And it's very, very visible. In our case, unlike some faiths that wear a special hat or a special ribbon or a dot on their head, or whatever it is, those religious vestments that we use, we choose to keep less public.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe because of that, it seems a little weirder to people because they don't see it all the time.
Right.
And they just hear about it and it's like, oh, you do what? But it's no different than other similar religious vestments.
Which leads into the conversation of modesty, because this is, I think, a social norm in our church. Is we have kind of shifted our view of what the garment is. I feel like we don't see the garment as much as just that reminder of our commitment to Christ as we do a reminder of how to be modest in our daily appearance and dress. I think oftentimes we see the garment as so like you said, we typically try and have it covered. So if I have a piece of clothing, a shirt, like for instance a tank top, that then I can see my garment sleeves, then stereotypically we would say, oh, that tank top is immodest because you can see your garments. And in my view, that's actually not the reason why we wear the garment. The garment is, as I already talked about, helping you remember your commitment to Christ. Garments were not designed to be the standard of modesty. In fact, they've shifted over time, many times, from what they used to be. I mean, there are garments that are long sleeve. There are garments that are, a full-on onesie that Thankfully, I don't condone
I had some family members who supported that one. That was a fun one.
But the onesie, or not the onesie. Now I'm thinking about the onesies. The garments have shifted over time in what they actually have looked like, and how much of your body it's actually covered. And so, for me to say that the garment is what defines modesty, I think that's an incorrect interpretation of what the garment does or
and
is.
yet within our culture, I think that was a pretty common thought or feeling.
Yeah.
That, and whether it was intentional or not, in recent years, that I feel like the brethren particularly have made it clear that that's not the role of the garment. And so, yeah, it really, it's anytime there's changes in things, we have to step back and think, okay, what are the core doctrines associated with this? And obviously, I feel a little bit out of sorts because I've never worn something like that, and it is more comfortable. It is cooler. That's nice. Do I need to feel bad about that or not? And we're not telling you one way or another what you need to think or feel on that, but just recognizing that different people do feel differently about it. And I guess one of my biggest questions in this discussion is, how do we, as a culture, respond to people who are really struggling with this?
Yeah.
On either side of it. And as a church, we go to church and we learn of Christ, we teach of Christ, we preach of Christ, we prophesy of Christ, right? Like, all very good things. And I feel like there has been a concerted effort by the brethren also to like streamline our topics and our discussion points to be very, very Christ-centered, which is good. We should be Christ-centered. Sometimes I wonder, is it bad to bring Christ into cultural aspects in our discussions? Does that make sense? So sometimes I come home from church and I think, like, it was good, but like, did it actually affect my day-to-day actions? And from a cultural standpoint, like, people are struggling with something. Should we be talking about these types of things in a church setting? Or should we not be talking about these things and just teach the surface level key doctrines and just let people govern themselves? I'm not saying that we should tell people what to think, but should we even mention that it's a thing?
Right.
Like the garment conversation, I guess I've had enough conversations with individuals who seem to be struggling with this that it makes me think, hey, should we be having a discussion in Relief Society or Elders Quorum about these types of things? Or should we be having talks that are related to this type of changes in culture? Or should we just teach the very core doctrines and let people govern themselves and let them work through it on their own? To me, that's a kind of a complicated question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know that there's one particular answer, and it's probably going to look different depending on what ward you're in, or everybody's got different backgrounds and whatnot. As you were just talking, the thought came to my mind that I think, of course, we should be talking about it in our Relief Society and Elders Quorum meetings. To me, that's what those meetings are for, is for questions to come out. This last week was a perfect example. We had someone in our Elders Quorum, or I guess it would have been 2 weeks ago, who asked the question, or had just brought up that his life, he's been struggling with a lot of things. He's just recently come back to church and gone through some family struggles. Wife or ex-wife and kids don't really interact with him much, and just kind of seemed a little down on himself, but also was at the same time testifying of the importance of Christ, and has been grateful for what the church has meant to him since he's come back. And then the rest of the lesson, it was, while we were still kind of on topic with the original topic, most of the responses we got turned to a response to this brother's kind of predicament, and trying to encourage him and build him up and hone in on key aspects of the lesson that felt would apply and help him in his situation. And I think that applies to what we're talking about right now. Like, if you've got a question about how to wear the garment, or what clothes are appropriate, or what modesty really looks like, or whatever cultural question or concern you've got, I think that Elders Quorum and Release Society is a perfect place to bring it up. Now, hopefully, the trick is, have you set up your Elders Quorum and Release Society teachers and instructors and leaders, presidents, to be prepared for that kind of conversation? Because there are teachers that, if you bring up a question, aren't ready for that kind of questions or discussion. They're going to maybe brush past your comment and move on with the next topic. So I think that maybe from a ward level, there needs to be some kind of instruction to the teachers, instructors, and presidencies to help facilitate some of that discussion and welcome it, maybe encourage it. But in my opinion, those are great places for that discussion to take place.
And I agree that I think generally, oftentimes, it's almost like people are too afraid to bring up things that they're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're not connected enough with the people in the quorums or classes to feel like we're safe enough to share our real thoughts on certain things. Does that make sense?
Even in person, we all want to put off the facade that life is good and we don't have any issues or worries.
But ultimately, that is what church is for us to come with our weaknesses, with our worries, with our stresses, and be able to be with other people of faith that we can take strength from. Now, in cultural aspects like this, there's going to be differences of opinion, and maybe that's why people don't bring it up, is because they're worried that, we're just going to cause more contention in this environment.
And I think that's a legitimate concern. Mm-hmm. The way that our society as a whole has shifted, I mean, you have a difference of opinion and it turns into a political fight, or you can no longer invite so-and-so to the family dinner.
Well, and for some people it's a difference of opinion, and for some people it's a difference of doctrine.
Yeah, right.
So this gets to with the garment and modesty changes. So, I feel like there's been much less strict guidance coming out from the church specifically on, like, this is what is modest and this is what isn't modest, right? Like a lot of things, and not just modesty. I mean, this is across the board, and how to keep the Sabbath day holy, and how to
what kind of media
what type of media, and are tattoos okay, or piercings okay, and like all of these things, the church has basically just said, okay, we had been defining these things, but ultimately you have to come to a decision and choice yourself, which I actually think is a really valuable way to internalize and take true ownership of our agency. I feel like in many cases, we had a discussion about this a while ago, that we have agency, but it's just easier to do what we're told by the church than to actually make our own decision about those things, and what we feel okay about and not okay about. And while there's pros and cons to both ways, and I think, every decade or so, it seems like there's a little bit of a backswing with that pendulum swing with the church kind of defining versus not defining. But in this deep prescriptive mode that I feel like we've been in, it does require us to take ownership of our agency. And sometimes we might be dumb and stupid and maybe not make the right choice. But once again, like, the whole purpose of life is to learn and grow and become better. And hopefully if we've, strayed too far, we feel the Spirit's guidance saying, you don't feel quite good about that, stop doing that. Regarding the modesty conversation, I feel like a lot of the pushback on it has come from years of modesty being taught as strictly what you can and can't wear.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually detrimental in a lot of ways in the long term. I think, there are some situations and contexts where that can be a good thing, but I think it became so pervasive as a culture within our church that this is modest, this isn't modest, that we started seeing a whole lot of judgment of those that were not holding to certain standards, as well as people were holding to certain standards, but without knowing why they were holding to those standards. Yeah. Modesty was just something you did to protect men. And that, I feel like the broader idea of what, like the core principles that modesty is tied to, which I think there's several core doctrines that it ties to, and depending on the time and place and the situation and the context and the will of the culture, like modesty can look very different and still be good and beautiful and righteous. And I think that's what we're having to learn right now with garments and modesty and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And, so like sleeveless things. And there are still plenty of people within the church who believe that wearing something sleeveless is immodest. But when we live in a culture right now where I always think it's funny. I started pointing this out to my wife, but, if I had come to church and saw someone wearing a sleeveless thing, I probably would have been like definitely noticed, you're wearing a sleeveless thing.
You're not wearing your garments.
Something's off there. Whereas every day, good people, friends, and people that are not members of our church would wear sleeveless things, and
you don't think twice about it.
You don't even think twice about it. It's like, it's not like it's tempting me. It's not like it's
it just is what it is.
It is what it is, and yet because we've been so ingrained and entrenched in our own cultural experience within the church, it feels off. And you know what? For the next little while, it will.
It's probably going to stay that way for a little while. Yeah.
But does that make it bad? No. And that's there's this fine line between when the Spirit is warning you about something and when you're just kind of pushing against the grain of a culture that makes you feel uncomfortable. But it's not the Spirit saying it's bad. It's just
you're just not used to it.
You're just not used to it. And I realize that can be a tricky thing for some people.
I think that the judgment part of it is a key role here, that we feel judged when we do something that we're not used to, and we judge others when we see that as well. And I actually see this as a really good thing, these changes. For instance, like you mentioned, anytime I saw a guy or lady wearing a sleeveless shirt or dress at church, one of my first thoughts, especially if it's someone that I view as fully active, one of my first thoughts would have been, oh, why are they not wearing their garments? And then my next thought is, well, if they're not wearing their garment, then they must be having some issues with their testimony, or they're having some problems at home, or you start thinking of all these other things, and maybe they just didn't wear their garment that day, and not a big deal. So I think that by opening up a little bit of the what you can wear now, once we get past this initial phase of people being more okay with change, and whether it's sleeveless shirt, tank tops and dresses, or shorter shorts or whatever it is, I think that will actually help us not be so judgmental, because you're not going to know if when I see you wearing a tank top when you go to the gym, I can't tell now if you're wearing your garments or not, because you might have a garment that's a tank top. Yeah. And I think from a judgmental standpoint, that is actually going to be really beneficial, because we're not going to be able to tell as easily. And I view that as a very good thing.
So an interesting exercise to do in this, because we're so caught up, within the church, I love my covenants and the relationship that I have with Jesus Christ. To me, covenants are all about relationship. But even covenants, all good things can be taken too far, almost to an idolization of that thing, as opposed to the relationship it's creating.
The purpose behind it.
And garments are no different. I think that sometimes, we want to inspire commitment
Mm-hmm.
And the garment is a beautiful way to inspire commitment, but sometimes that commitment is taken a step beyond where it should be, and it creates animosity towards those around us, as opposed to being a thing that unifies and leads us to Christ and reminds us of Christ.
I think it's kind of interesting because I've heard of a lot of different things with the garment, especially when that I don't know that I have ever actually read in the church handbook or doctrine that says one thing or another. So, for instance, like, can your garments touch the floor? When you
that was something I remember my parents, I feel like, were kind of in that generation where if they touched the ground,
like if it touched the ground, you did some bad juju because
I've done some bad juju then.
And like, sure, like I mentioned in the beginning, they're sacred. We view them as an important piece of clothing, and I think they deserve to be treated that way. But if I take it off and I sit on the couch and it falls off and touches the ground and I don't notice it, do I have to go burn it and like do a sacred ritual? No, I don't. It's going to be okay.
And that stems to how the commitment that we have to them. And I'm not saying that it's bad that people are committed enough that they feel like, as a form of respect, they want to keep them off the ground. Like if someone chooses to do that,
mm-hmm.
by all means, like feel free to choose to do that. But that's not a church doctrine. That's not
right.
And I think they probably get that from scriptures. Do not defile things. But like, what do you mean by defile your garments? Like right. That can mean a lot of different things to different people. And once again, just
like if you don't make it to the bathroom quick enough, you're going to defile them. But like that's what the laundry's for.
That's true.
Like
that is true. And really, in my mind, defiling would be more of like breaking your covenants in your temple garments. But the other side of this too is that we've grown up with garments our whole lives, and so it seems like an eternal principle. But is wearing garments an eternal principle?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Because I would say no.
No.
I'm pretty sure. I know that we tie everything back to the garment that Adam and Eve received in the Garden of Eden,
mm-hmm.
And yet, like in modern times, has the garment been the exact same? Like there have always been ordinances,
right,
surrounding the covenants that we make.
Well, again, the garment has changed over time. So we have more of a modern version of the garment, but even if you look at biblical times, the priests that were in the tabernacles and temples then, they had their own version of the garment, their temple clothing,
mm-hmm.
That stemmed, like you said, all the way back down from Adam. And even Adam's clothing was designed to be kind of symbolic, a reminder of where we come from.
And I believe it was at roughly around the 1900s, early 1900s, maybe late 1800s, when the church officially started creating the garments.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, there were still symbols that members could put on their own clothing. But it was not a standardized thing that
mm-hmm.
has become today. And so I just think, in a short lifespan, for anybody that's less than 50, like in 50 years, the view that you have is very limited from the grand scheme of the time that the church has been restored, as well as all eternity and, back to Adam and Eve. And so things that we take as like gospel truth, like
mm-hmm.
this is like, and yes, our prophets do teach us to do something. I'm not saying that's not important, but once again, we just need to be careful not to idolize the garments in a way that puts so much commitment on them that it actually draws us away from Christ.
Yeah.
And that can be a fine line for some people, but I would not put it in the category of eternal principle.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a principle that we live now that helps and does have great blessings associated with it.
Well, there's other things that I think I would say or fall along that same line, like, is going to church an eternal principle? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
Are we going to go to church in the life after this?
The word of wisdom is required to go to the temple right now, but like, is the word of wisdom an eternal principle? No. Like, there's, and that's where we are given these commandments and guidance and direction. And this is why the church goes through deep prescription every so often, I think, is because it gets us back into, okay, I need to center my life on Christ. And as I center my life on Him, not on the church, it is His church, but sometimes people center their lives too much in the church and not enough in Christ.
The organization rather than the leader, the Savior.
And it is the true and living church being led by Christ, but that will then guide us to say, okay, if you're having an issue with the brethren saying, changing the garment, it's like, maybe you're a little bit too focused on the principle than you are on where Christ is leading His church.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are strange differences that you'll see all sorts of debate online about certain aspects of the garment. So, like, for example, maybe a little bit more controversial here would be, garments come in different sizes. You can get garments made for tall people, you can get garments made for medium-sized people, and you can get garments made for short people.
And who's to say I'm not a tall person and you're not a short person?
Well, exactly. Like, you guys different
can
people
see
can
the
wear
difference here.
wearing. Is it apostate for a tall person to order short garments because he wants to wear more clothing with them, right?
Right.
And I'm not going to answer these questions for people. I think people can make their choices and talk with people. These are the types of things that I feel like there's going to be people that are passionate about on both sides of the
argument.
The argument.
Yeah.
And I'll be straightforward that I'm not overly worried about that argument. I feel like if someone is able to wear their garments with more things that they feel comfortable and modest wearing, then all the power to them. Like that's just my personal.
If you're wearing
mentality.
your garment, that's the thing we agreed to do is wear the garment, right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the temple recommend does it say, "Are you wearing your petite garments versus the long and tall?" Or
and if they change it so that it does say that, well then
then we can change our opinion. But at this point, I think the answer to that question is it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. I realize that some people will say, well, they just want to wear that so that they can wear immodest clothing. I was like, well, okay, let's get back to the value, what is modesty? What is the value of modesty? And is modesty just about what you wear? Is there a broader concept there? And maybe they are just being immodest. And you know what? That's their choice. Like, am I going to judge them for that? Like, if they feel comfortable in it and they feel like it's appropriate to their situation, then I've become much less worried about that type of thing. I do understand where it does worry me, right? Is there? I mean, there are some situations where women, I do think, put themselves in a state of risk if they're dressing in a certain way that, in certain places, that they can be preyed upon by men in certain ways, but vast majority of places I don't feel like meet that criteria or that bill, and
well, and I'm going to just say this, that regardless of, if you think that the new garments are immodest in some way, like even if I were to give you that argument, if men or women are wearing clothing that covers even the new garments, it is nowhere near what I would consider to be like immodest and risky for, like, you're still wearing and covering the vast majority of your body. And
I agree.
Like, you could be wearing a whole lot worse.
Absolutely.
Then.
And so we should be grateful that they're wearing their garment. Yeah. Anyway, so that's one cultural aspect I don't know if we have. We can come back to it if you have more on that. But there are several other cultural aspects that I would love to be talked about more. I don't know. I guess we talk about it with people outside of church, and I guess that's my question is like, is that enough to just talk with your friends about it outside of church, or is it really something that should be talked about in a church setting, knowing that church is only 2 hours, knowing that, we're trying to focus on, maybe that 2 hours is just supposed to be solely focused on that. But I know that I come out of church sometimes feeling like that was the same old.
Yeah.
And I really like the deep discussions where it gets into meaningful things that people are thinking about and that are related to our culture. Yes, keeping them Christ-centered. So let's see, what are some other examples of some key ways that the church culture has shifted and is shifting very quickly right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think this ties into a little bit of the cultural shift in overall society, not just church, but the roles that we have for gender between men and women. One of the big changes that has recently come out in the church that has announced is that our Sunday school presidents can be a woman now, which for most people that I've talked to have not had any issues with that. But I think that speaks to kind of a shift that we're seeing with trying to provide the women in the church a little bit more opportunities to serve and have some leadership roles. Not that they haven't had leadership roles, I think, but just another opportunity for I guess for some people would see it as a progression towards equality.
And this is kind of a funny topic because in my...
As he adjusts in his chair, getting ready
in my estimation, that's one way to view this, is that the church is kind of just caving to modern cultural changes that says women need to have equal say in leadership. And if you want to think that, you can think that. I don't think that that's why this change occurred.
And to be clear, I don't either, but I'm just saying that I think that's generally kind of the shift that we're seeing. It kind of lines up with some of those.
It's true,
trends.
And it does. And some people get very excited about it because of that. And feel free to get excited about it. That's not a problem. However, answer this question. Was it wrong or bad that a few months ago that was not able to be a woman?
No.
It's a change in a policy. It's not that it's right or wrong, but any given time frame, there will be a need for different things. And when we start getting into like why the brethren made the shift, we're all just speculating. Nobody knows exactly.
There's a reason they're there and we're here.
Exactly. And I'm sure that there were many reasons why, and it's probably all of the above, right? Like there's probably multiple things. But when we put all our eggs in one basket and it's like, it's because of this, then okay, probably not just that. I think that men in a church where a lot of leadership does come from men, and when there's a lot of men that are not as active as their female counterparts, that from a structural, just like keeping things together, sometimes you need to be able to put women in more places. And I'm not saying that's the whole reason, but I think that
I'm actually really excited for the change. I think it's going to be great because you're going to have, for the men that you would typically have in that presidency, you can put them in a different position that they would otherwise be used for. And there are plenty of women that are active in the church that can very easily do that, be the president of the Sunday school, and be, I think, way better.
Oh, they will be so much better.
I think Sunday school is going to be run way better than it has been.
It's kind of been like the de facto, like, calling that you kind of give to someone who needs a calling, but they don't need to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so a lot doesn't happen.
For the record, that was me a couple of years ago.
Anyway, we just called a female.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the timing
Awesome.
the timing worked out because right about the time they made the announcement, we had a bunch of people move out, including our Sunday school president.
Okay.
And so we just called a sister to serve in that calling, and I have no doubt that she's going to rock that calling, and it's going to be done way better than it's ever been done in the past. And I'm grateful for that. I think that will
us as
be
guys
very
just,
positive.
We suck at organization and teaching in situations like that.
And Sunday school is a lot about organization.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
And doing trainings and
Yeah.
I mean, not that guys can't do it. And I mean, we do it in a lot of other things, but I really do feel like as we get more women in that calling, we're gonna see a lot of improvements, and it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good example of changes. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that are bickering about how
we can't let women have another role in our seats.
And a lot of that bickering is probably because they think that the cause or the reason for the switch was to cater to the feminists in the councils of the church. It's like, no.
It's probably more of that than anything else if you're against the idea.
Yeah.
And boo-hoo to you. Stop being so judgmental.
Other cultural shifts that we had mentioned earlier. So one that I have to admit I get a little bit nervous about because it's cultural, not doctrinal, and that is women going on missions. So we know that way more women are going on missions.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's probably a very good thing in most situations. However, when you have masses and masses of women going on missions, when it's not a priesthood responsibility for women, there are other good things that women can do. My worry is that there will be a chunk of women that, maybe they would have gotten married, maybe they would have done this thing, but they're just because that's what everybody's doing, they go on a mission, and then, and once again, is that a bad thing? Not in all cases, but I think in some cases it's positive. But the pressure of feeling like, oh, everybody has to go on a mission, I don't think is healthy either. And the church has not said that. The church has not said that every woman needs to serve a mission. However, when our culture, when there's a high enough percentage of women that are going, that automatically will create a tension in some of our sisters when they get to that age 18, feeling like, well, I didn't go on a mission. Maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I am not righteous enough, or maybe I'm not. And that is unhealthy and not good. And I think we just need to be sure that those that don't choose not to serve don't feel like they're second class, don't feel like they are not righteous enough, that God has different plans for everybody, and that's totally okay.
That kind of feels like the way it was for the young men. I feel like it's shifted. Like maybe this is just me, and you guys watching don't. If you disagree or haven't seen this, then disregard what I'm about to say. But I feel like there's been a lack of pressure on young men to go on missions from a church leadership standpoint, like on a local level, and from a parental standpoint too. Like at home, I feel like there's not as much of a push. But the young women, and maybe it's because young women are just amazing and mature. So much,
they are
much faster,
mature,
that they're willing and ready to go on missions more than the young men are oftentimes. But I feel like, and again, maybe I'm totally off base here, that the young women seem to be way more excited, and like there is kind of a culture of young women going, and there's less of that with the young men that really, in my opinion, have that duty and should be going on a mission.
I will say we have struggled in the young men's realm in our area, getting our young men to serve.
And maybe that's just our area,
since we've had some young men serve, which is really sad, because I think that there should be more emphasis there. Now, the other cultural shift that's occurred is there's been a big emphasis on service missions.
Right.
Now, I think service missions are awesome. I think that it's a great option. I do wonder, and once again, this is something that I think is kind of varies from area to area, how much it's been emphasized, but I feel like service missions have been really emphasized in our area. And I sometimes worry that it's being overemphasized. It's like, oh, just pick whichever type of mission you want. Like, it's going to be, either one is good. And especially for young men, I feel like what will allow a young man to thrive on a mission is calling him into the adventure of doing something crazy.
Yeah. And giving him some responsibility.
Yeah. And they get to an age where they want that responsibility. They want to do something epic. They want they want, and hopefully from a culture of people that have told positive stories, that have told, like, this is hard. Like it's not, it is awesome and it is hard. And when we step into that, that's much better. And I guess, once again, I'm glad that there's the option. I think there are a lot of young men where the service mission is a nice option. But I just feel like we've almost, like, they're not that they're unequal.
I know you're trying not to get
Does that
yourself
make
in
sense?
trouble here.
like they're both good opportunities. Given your situation, I think there's lots of young men.
But don't use one as a cop-out just to not do something difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, a service mission sounds way easier in my mind from a proselyting mission. Like, who doesn't like to go serve? Like, that's a very positive thing. And as a proselyting missionary, you do service as well, but you really get yourself a little bit more out of your comfort zone. And I don't want people to miss out on that opportunity.
Sure.
Because I think there's a lot of growth that comes from that you don't get as much just with service.
Now, to be fair, there are certainly cases where elders and sisters should not go on a proselyting mission, and a service mission is the right call for them and is the ideal situation. So, not to say that if you do a service mission,
that you're less than.
You're less than, or you're not able to do any. Like, I that's not the message that I think you're trying to put out there. Is that if you are able and willing to put yourself out there in a more uncomfortable and self-growing, that's the wrong term, but progressive position, then go do a proselyting mission. And you're gonna be better for it. But the service missionaries are amazing, and they do a lot of really good work. And honestly, I mean, there's a lot of things that service missionaries do that help the church run as a whole. So we need both.
And we do need both. And I guess that's my issue, is that, once again, the mass culture, you have lots and lots of people doing this, the same thing at the same age, that culturally it'll just become kind of, we follow the path of least resistance, I feel like. And if the culture just makes it so easy to do anything, then I feel like we're going to see a lot of people not reach their maximum potential and
just go for whatever.
And I guess that's where my worry stems from. And maybe it's an unnecessary worry. I am glad that it's been expanded, and that it allows for more people to have positive experiences on their mission, because there's lots of people who have come home from proselyting missions and it's been a very negative and bad experience, and we don't want that. And for those that happens to, it doesn't mean that they're less than those that don't have a bad experience. Like it's not a matter of your worth or your ability, or it's just some will have a better experience here and some will have a better experience here, and you need to line up with what you're going to have the best experience with. But don't sell yourself short doing the opposite that just seems easier to you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So I'm going to have to look up some statistics, because I'm curious to see. I know overall missionaries have grown as far as in numbers, how many missionaries are going out church worldwide. But I'd be curious to know, maybe off the top of your head, what the the numbers look between sister missionaries and elders. If those are both growing, or if it's just one side, or if like one has stayed the same and one's growing. Because obviously the sisters have grown dramatically, because we've had the age change, and culturally it's changed a lot. So I think that side has definitely grown a lot. I'd be curious to know if the young men that are going has grown as much as So I'll have to look that up and
that is an interesting question.
I wonder if those are numbers that we can get.
And the sister missionary thing, for whatever reason, is just I feel strongly about, maybe because I have so many daughters too. I have 6 daughters, and I would be happy if they chose to go on a mission of their own free will and choice. But I don't want them to feel pressured to go on a mission, and I don't feel like they should be pressured to go on a mission. And that's where my concern lies there. Anyway, good talk. I think we could probably go on a couple different things, and maybe one of our next episodes we can talk some more about some other cultural shifts, and we're going to keep talking about different things like this. So if you guys have anything that comes to mind that you want us to talk about or are curious about, let us know. But overall, I think the general consensus is stick to the core doctrines, the principles, the reasons why you're doing things, not just because it's traditional or it's what you've always done, or what everybody else says you need to do or don't do. Wear your garment and be comfortable in your garment. Go on a mission, serve a mission, whether you're a young man or young woman. It's a good thing. Just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, not just because all your friends are going. Do it because you love the Lord and you want to bring people to Him. And if you do that, then things are going to work out just fine. I have a firm testimony of that, and I think we're all going to be a little bit better for it if we, like we say, let our light shine. Don't hide under a bushel, and let Christ be the one that leads you around. Give yourself some freedom to make your own decisions, and not just do what you think you're being told to do.
Even if it's the same choice.
Make
sure you're choosing to make that choice.
Exactly. Because a lot of us, and I'm one of them, it's really nice to have someone just tell you what to do. At the same time, that's not where the most growth is going to come from. It's going to come from when you actually make that choice yourself.
For sure.
So thanks for watching. This is
the No Bushel Podcast. We'll see you next time.